Hello, everyone. Coach Carole here again with a live cast focusing in on networking with social media, in particular Facebook today. And with me in the studio, I have John Marie Pearson. Welcome, John Marie. Tell
Thank
us
you.
where you are.
I am in northern New York in the United States, and
Excellent.
I've been here for just a couple of years. I move around a lot.
And what's your specialty?
I started out doing genealogy, and then when I got more involved with historical societies, I realized there was a need for historical and genealogical societies to be on social media. And there was a big fear on that, on a lot of board members not wanting to go on social media. And so that's how I kind of involved into when I was president of one organization. I was like, all right, let's do this. And then I realized how important it is to really get them to understand. That's where the genealogy community is.
Absolutely. And, we need to reach out to all of our genealogist friends as far and as wide as possible.
Exactly.
And I have quite a network amongst the Facebook groups, too many for me to catch up on in any one week. But I like using Facebook because it has more of a conversational style to it in threads that I can follow easily enough. So its structure suits me quite well. But what do you find the benefits of using Facebook?
Well, Facebook is definitely what's nice about Facebook is when you post something, there's a longer shelf life. Like if you post like a question or, I need help with this or that on, genealogy related, it gets buried within 15 minutes of you posting it. Where on Facebook, you have a much longer shelf life. I'd say probably within 24 hours. That'll be there on the front of people's social media feed. So it's a much slower pace, and I think a lot of people have an easier time keeping up on it because you don't have to be on Facebook as much as you do on Twitter to catch up with everybody.
I agree with that. And I like that expression, the shelf life of your posts. That's a really good one for me to remember. Facebook has some quirks as well, and one of them was what we discussed a moment ago about doing live cast there. So that one, I need to tweak that perhaps to get it more user friendly. But I find that the communication within Facebook is much better. So how do you find with your groups the Facebook communication? Is it successful? How often do people come in and do their conversations?
Well, I think what one of the big difference between Facebook and a lot of the other groups is you can actually create your own community within a group, which is one reason groups have just exploded. I mean, there's every type of genealogical and historical group that you could think of that's there. And because you can form that little group, you're not mixed in with everybody else trying to compete against, the algorithm. And so it forms more of a tighter community, which I think is what a lot of people who go on Facebook, like you and I are talking. I mean, we both have a lot of groups that we belong to, but you know exactly what group you can go to that's going to get you the help or assistance that you need. And I think
Yeah.
that makes Facebook very unique.
Yes, I agree with you there. It certainly is a place where you can set up your own group very simply and find other groups that you are interested in. I mean, not just genealogy, but we all have different places that we go to and
Right.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we were on Facebook and looking for genealogy groups, how would they do that?
I mean, the best way I have found is to go in there and actually search, in the search bar, genealogy. And you could start out broad and then you can slowly start narrowing that down, such as, I have ancestors in Swaffham Prior, England. So I was able to narrow that down and find a group that fits specifically for that. So just searching out and then slowly building it to a smaller section. You might, and the thing too is you search one day and the group might not be there, and someone just started a group last week. So you've got to constantly be checking to see how, So really going as specific as you want or as broad as you want. I recommend people do both ways to see what's out there, because you might find you connect better with one group of people than another group. And sometimes some groups are more active than others. So it's a lot of playing around with the groups, which I'm sure you've experienced too. You find those groups that, this is my go-to groups, So you really need to play with that and kind of see.
Yeah, that's good advice. My go-to groups, yes, indeed. I find myself being drawn to those more frequently because the topics are of interest to me, because I've chosen that group for that very specific reason. So filtering down, as you say, is the logical way to go.
Right.
And once you're in one of those groups, you'll know when you feel comfortable. You'll know what it's like when you've asked a question or left a comment as to what happens after that. So in your Facebook groups and pages, possibly, I'm not sure if you have a page, but
yeah, I actually have a page. I haven't branched out into a group yet, just because I feel like there's so many groups out there that I belong to.
fair enough. Yes, I have a page, but a few groups. So we specialize in different things. So one of my groups is all about digital storytelling. Another is all about ancestral storytelling. And then this one, which is all about the network or networking. So these are my go-tos at the moment, whilst focusing in on the benefits of networking this way. So have you had any challenges or special campaigns that you have used Facebook for?
I have because I specialize in handling social media management for quite a few historical and genealogical societies. And the biggest struggle I have found in some of the groups is just engagement. Like, people like to go on there and just scroll through the feed, and they'll read stuff, but they won't respond. Like, they won't say, oh, hey, especially if I found someone that had the name Steinbrecher, I'd be all over commenting, to them. So I think I would like to see people engage more on social media, because that's what it's supposed to be for. And I think I haven't quite figured out why in some groups there's just not that engagement yet. If people are just, they don't know what to say or what, but it's like, I think if we could start engaging more, that would really create even more of a tighter community. Kind of like, because Twitter, I feel like there's a group that they have that bond.
Yeah.
And I think you can't go in expecting to automatically get that bond on social media. You have to actually engage and share your thoughts. And I mean, because this is the only time people aren't going to roll their eyes at you when you're talking about, your ancestors, your other family's like, here we go again, but social media, they're going to be, love it.
Of course, they're in a place where we can be assured that the topic is going to be of interest to them. And I hear what you say. I think people need to feel comfortable before they're ready to comment or create their own posts within a new group. And I'm finding that with the PGN that I've developed for this campaign. It was a slow start, and now that a few more people such as yourself are coming in to make comments, it encourages others. So we'll see what happens over the next few days.
They just don't want to be the first one to comment, is what it seems like.
Right. Okay. So we find our genealogist by doing the searching, and we enter and try it out for size and start commenting, or at least viewing and reading. And of course, then take a copy of their URL, and add it to your PGN. So that's how we're working with this
And I
particular.
tell people too, don't be scared of when the questions pop up. Like, you know how you go to join a group and some people are like, oh, well, I better not because they're asking these questions. Don't be scared to ask those questions. It's keeping out the people that don't need to be there that are trying to sell stuff. That's what it's all about. And so I think some people are scared of that, and don't be scared. Just answer the questions and join the group.
Absolutely. It makes such a swifter entry into a group if
Mm-hmm.
the owner has set it so that if you answer all the questions, you get automatic entry.
Right.
I prefer that so that there's not as much work in the background. And I've noticed that most of the people in this group have done that. They've automatically been given entry because they've answered all the questions.
Right.
And it's just reminded me, talking about questions, I'm not sure who might be online, if anyone. No.
Another thing I would recommend is, and when they set up the URL on their network, when they're putting those little tidbits in, if you have someone you talk to all the time, maybe put that person in there so you know, oh, they belong to that group, and they can go to that, and that kind of helps too. If you know people are going to answer a question, maybe make a note in your I don't know what it's called, but in the little notes, so you know that's where you need to go to ask those kind of questions.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I'd forgotten about that particular thing. Of course, networking, what you want to be able to do is to follow those people that you find of interest, and they will follow you back. Not sure how I'm going on Facebook for the number of followers, but it's a reasonable number. But you see,
Mine's okay. My problem is I'm always on like my clients, and so I get them into the thousands, and then I look at mine. I'm like, oh, I need to start doing more work and networking.
absolutely, you're right. You have to do quite a lot of work. You have to be present and encourage and engage. So that's what it's all about.
Right.
Now, we mentioned following, we mentioned commenting. What other special terms and activities are there that you can advise us about when we're using Facebook?
I think I'd recommend when you join the group, see if they have like a Facebook page also, because a lot of times those groups will fall under a page, and they'll follow the group. But a lot of times, a lot of the information they're advertising about, like telling about going live or different events and that, are on the main page.
Yep.
And so I recommend people follow both so that you're getting all the information into your feed.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Thank you for that. And do you have any specific groups that you might like to mention as some that you'd recommend we connect with in Facebook?
Oh gosh, so many. I know. You sprung that one on me. Gosh, I know I'm drawing a blank, but
all right.
I will recommend though that people I believe Cindy is now on Cindy's list, has a list of every single group, and there's actually the master list is over 16,000 genealogy and history related groups.
Yeah, that's the one we want, the genealogy master list.
Yes. And I mean, and she updated it, I think, in January. And that just tells you how many groups there are. So there's a group for everybody, for anything.
Yeah.
Right now, I've kind of gotten more involved in some newer groups. That's why on the top of my head, I'm not thinking of what groups I normally go to. Because I've been working on my Irish genealogy, my Irish root. So all I did was I started searching in for Irish groups, and now I think I have like 10 that I'm following. So, but I mean, Cindy's list helps, you can go through it and actually see the categories too.
Yeah, I like the way that Cindy's organized all that. It's so easy to go and find them. And within that, we have lists of all other types of places where genealogists gather. So I thought we might sway over to the side of the blogs for the moment.
Right.
And see what we can find out about maybe your favorite Geneabloggers. What I do is I go to Cindy's list and I'll have a look at the top Geneabloggers that she's recommending and have a look there, and then go off sideways from there. I might find who that particular blogger follows and I'll follow their trail.
Right.
With blogging, you have your own blog site. Let me just put that on the screen there. Would you like to tell us more about that?
Yeah. So my blog is it's social media mixed with how to share your history, genealogy. And then I also am on my personal journey of discovering my ancestors. And so it's kind of a mishmash of all of those. And then I've written articles for some historical societies for research that I've done for them. And so it's kind of encompasses a lot, but I just try to help people. My main goal is I want to help people connect and share their genealogy, because I feel blogging is that way of sharing our family history, where if something happened to us, their stories are still there. People can still read their stories. And that's the most important thing to me, is I want to share my ancestors' stories with as many people as I can, because the more their stories are heard, the longer they're going to live on, their stories.
Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's what I like to think, that the blog posts that I have made will live on past me and that my family can go and read them. I sometimes have to encourage my family to actually go there.
Yes.
Get the eye rolling, but never mind.
That's why we have the genealogy community right now.
Indeed. I'm on your blog site now, and I look at one of the posts there that you did 4 days ago, steps to making sure people can find you on social media. So that's another little question that we could pose for you right now. What would you give advice to people about?
My biggest thing is you've got to think of social media as an extension of yourself. It's an extension of the historical societies, and it's an extension of your business. It's an extension of your life. It's your story sharing platform. So when you're not making sure that people can find you on social media, too many people I see will have one name on one account, like on Facebook, and then Twitter will have a different name, and then Instagram will have a different. And so you'll go and look for something like, say, Mount Vernon Genealogical Society. You look, if they have a different name, you're not sure you're on the right society, So it's important. You want to keep it the same across the board. I mean, yes, you're on social media on the different platforms, but they're all a part of you. So you got to try to brand it so it all comes back to you. Like, they look at that and they're like, yep, that's, like, that's the Simple Living genealogist. They'll know, the colors she's using. Yep, that's her. Yeah. And so I think that makes a difference when they can tell it's you on each of the platforms. And I think that's very important, to make sure that they can find you all across, the same picture. And those are just the little details that people don't think matter, but they do.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking that I've got a particular brand that I use, which is the Coach Carole, and that's how all of my social media handles came about. But only in the recent times have I started thinking of myself as essential genealogist. Wanted to choose something that was a bit different, but my branding for that is not the same as my handles on the social media. So we'll have to.
If you think about it, it's kind of like an extension of you, though.
Yes.
You could still, Central Genealogist could be like your handle, of your like kind of tag, as you will.
True. Yeah.
So, yeah. But I think if you make yourself easily found, because a lot of us are on there hoping to find cousins too.
True. Yes, indeed.
So you want them to be able to find you. And so you've got to make it as easy as possible. I mean, and simply say what you're on there for in your bio, genealogy. I'm on there for history, it's got to be short and simple, but when they know exactly what you're about, that helps a lot.
Indeed. All right, I'm just going to change that one over. That's not the one I want. There we go. The personal genealogy Facebook group. Coming back to the junior bloggers, I find it really enlightening when I focus in on those that have some messages to tell me about research, perhaps, or storytelling. And then I find engagement with those who tell the story of their ancestors. Do you
I think
find
some people are scared to share their ancestors' story, thinking no one's going to care. But honestly, I mean, I read so many other people's blogs about their ancestors, and I'm not related to them. But 52 Ancestors is a program where they give you a topic once a week.
Yep.
And I'll go in there and I'll read through all of those, and I feel connected to them, even though they're not my ancestors. People love stories. We're all about stories.
Yep. I love reading those stories.
Yeah.
And I am doing the 52 Ancestors, 52 weeks again this year.
Yeah.
And I love going to look at others and how they've interpreted the prompt, because that gives me ideas as well. So
yeah, because I've looked at, like, what was last week, worship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I was surprised on how you take one little word and get all these different stories, just from one little prompt.
Yep.
So it's interesting, and it gets you thinking about other things within your own personal story that you might look deeper into.
Absolutely. And the worship one I haven't posted yet, because I'm still struggling with I'm trying to find the right kind of story to go with that. And this year I've made a promise to my family anyway that I'm going to cover stories of a particular line, our maternal line. So I need to keep that in mind as well as the prompt.
Right.
And I have some favorite junior bloggers, and they have some interesting names. There's the occasional genealogist, Jennifer. Yeah. And then there's the Chiddix family tree.
He's actually one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I always feel inspired when I read his stories. And he seems like he touches different topics. But yes, the way he writes is really engaging.
Absolutely. So if you haven't yet found the Chiddix family tree, we'll put a link to that under this live cast. And another one, well, I've added the Simple Living Genealogist, and I've also added Myracopia, which is another one from a person that I interviewed last month in my podcasts. And the name's just gone out of my head for the moment, but Myracopia is an interesting one. And I believe that she is doing the 52 Ancestors. So if you're interested in seeing someone who's very proficient with that and who has done several years of 52 ancestor posts, then go to Myracopia. So we'll put all these links.
And all those posts from the 52 Ancestors is on, that is one group that I am actively a part of, is Genealogy Cafe.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Is it Genealogy or Generations Cafe?
Generations Cafe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
True. Yeah. Yeah, go and join the Generations Cafe and you'll catch up with Amy Johnson and everyone else who is involved with the 52 Ancestors. Yes. So definitely my advice is to subscribe where you like them and add them into your PGN. Is there any other advice that you'd like to leave us with today, John Marie, either in any kind of social media?
I think it is just social media. It's about being social. And I think people need to not be scared. It doesn't have to, just jumping on there 15 minutes a day will make a huge difference in your connection. And I think You need to not be scared to share your thoughts or your stories or anything like that. Just engage. That's my biggest thing is if you engage, you're going to get so much out of it, and you're going to develop these friendships worldwide. I mean, our ancestors could have only dreamed of having this connection. We have instant connection like we're doing right now,
Yep.
And we need to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like being able to build my network of friends and genealogists and family around the world. And
Right.
being in Facebook environment, as you say, is pretty easy to do
Yeah.
that with simple posts. I sometimes get a surprise when Facebook remembers something that I posted way back. And I'll think to myself, "Oh, yeah, that was pretty good, that." I
Yeah.
often write poetry spontaneously
Yeah.
and pop that up there, and Facebook will remind me of that sometime down the track. And then your advice about being with the blogging groups, the Geneabloggers, I like the fact that, what we're doing there is really sharing our stories and leaving those as a legacy.
Right.
So that's our advice for you today from the livecast, focusing in on social media once again. And I have to say a big thank you to Jean-Marie for coming in. And we finally made it into
Yeah,
the
we
world.
made it time zones across the world.
Absolutely. So thank you so much once more.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed this.
Excellent. All right, I will now end the broadcast.